Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Sovereign Lounge. We have your hosts, Round the World Man and Yamin Fauzi, to bring you some new analysis from the world of investment migration and residency. Now, today, Yamin and I want to talk to you about something that, I believe Yamin has invented this terminology. We're calling it Russian residency roulette. Yamin, please enlighten us all about this topic. I'm fascinated by what you're about to present us, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, yeah, today we are going to talk about Russian residency options. You would think that why would some people care about Russian residency these days, especially when it comes to uh, the conflicts that are happening on the European continent with all the sanctions in place, and, there's still demand for it, and we're going to talk about three different policies, two of which are actual residencies, and one which I'm going to talk about in the end, which is very interesting for a lot of homesteaders, I would say. So I'm gonna quickly fire up this.
No, now,
This
yeah, I mean, while you're bringing
like
that up, I want to just mention that
mhm.
you just use a key term that a lot of American citizens might be familiar with. It's called the Homestead or the Homestead Act, or in Canada
Correct.
we have the Dominion Lands Act, which is a similar program in
Yeah.
Canada. So that's a very fascinating thing there. So let's see what you've pulled up here. You've got the top Russian shared values visa applicant nationalities. Wow. All right. Please tell me what you got here.
Yeah, so this is a chart from IMI Daily, which you all can look up there. So, and as of I think 2024 or 2023, the Russia Ministry of Internal Affairs, they what they did is they launched a program called Russia's Shared Values Visa. So, what does it mean, Shared Values Visa? So it means that every citizen from a country that has similar values like Russia, mainly European countries, they can apply for residence permits in the Russian Federation, like a temporary, and then they can turn it into permanent residency, and eventually even to citizenship. So there is no real investment required for this values visa. You don't need to, for example, invest in a real estate, or buy something else. Make a large investment sum. And yeah, so since this program has been launched, 1,156 applicants in 7 months. Okay, so yeah, it was 2024, and the majority of them coming from Germany. And there's a reason why there is a lot of Germans here, and which I believe. And it's interesting to see how many people have actually applied for it. I see the Russian shared values visa, in my personal opinion, a little bit of a like counter movement of wokeism in the or what we call the wokeism in the Western Hemisphere. With certain new trends, and Russia captured this. This sort of demographics that they want to that they want to counterbalance and say, look, we in Russia we have traditional values, and we are open for people who want to come here, who are open to learn the language, who have the same traditions and values. And yeah, so here you can see here's a little bit better quality, where we can isolate things. Most of the applicants come from Germany, then Latvia, the United States, France, Italy, UK, another Baltic proportion here, South Korea, which I found very interesting, and then there's unspecified the rest of the world. And yeah, I mean, the two here, to be honest, that makes perfect sense to me. If you follow a little bit of German politics, um, I'm probably sure that most of these German citizens come more from the eastern part of Germany, um, like Eastern, which was formerly the Eastern Germany, that want to come to Russia and reside there and apply it for the visa. Also, Latvia makes sense. There's quite a lot of ethnic Russian people living in Latvia, so probably that makes sense that they apply to to relocate to Russia, you know, and yeah, and even the United States has the third largest, which is very fascinating. I think people are, they are fed up with certain directions that have been going on. Also, to be honest, this program was launched during the Biden administration when there was a much more left wing or, well, how do you say it? Well, left wing or ideologies coming through the administration. People were like, well, we're fed up with this, so we're going to move to Russia, and yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
these are
so
the
so
statistics.
so I think that's a very good insight. You just mentioned that this was officially launched during the Biden administration, but just as a data point, it was probably within the last 6 months of the Biden administration, give or take. I believe this was launched in 2024, and that's I think that sounds about right. 2020, sometime in 2024, and yeah, here it is, August 2024. So it was the kind of final days of the Biden administration. I think most people figured that he was on his way out, obviously. But as far as the amount of people, it was definitely going back to those demographics. It was interesting to see, like you said, how many people from the U.S. The Latvia thing definitely makes sense to me as well. South Korea is a standout there in my case, unless there could be some
I
situations there
mean,
where
there's
they're trying to stay close to South Korea, but still in the Russian Federation. Possibly there could be some business interests or mining or forestry, something like this. I'm not entirely sure, because a lot of people forget that Russia goes way deep into Asia to the Pacific Ocean, just like South Korea. So there could be some of those applicants there. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, the government, they have approved the list of 47 eligible countries, which includes the entire European Union member states, and also some, I assume Switzerland is also included in it. US, Canada, Australia, Japan, and South Korea. So these are, well, Japan and South Korea are the only non-Western quote
yeah,
unquote
I
country.
was
I
I
mean,
was under the
Australia
impression that
basically is a
Hungary
former
wasn't
British.
eligible for this. So it says all European Union members, but I thought Hungary, maybe Hungary and Poland were not eligible for this. These citizens. But I again, I'd have to clarify that. But because I believe Hungary and Poland were considered to have similar values to Russia, so I thought that they were not.
Actually, you can see it here in this graph here. There you can see it. Yeah. So you're right with Hungary, and I think this is Slovakia, as I understand, are not included in it. So these two, but Poland is. Ireland is not, for also another interesting reason, even though they're European Union member.
Right.
So yeah, you can see. So most of Europe,
Right.
excluding like some of these countries, and
Right. So it looks like
yeah,
there's like
even
the data wrapper, the visualization there might have the correct data, but in the article, it might be written, the actual text of the article looks like it's written off a little bit, because it does say including all European Union members. So it looks
yeah,
like there's some incongruencies there, but in general, it's most of the European Union and United States, Canada. Evidently, South Korea is included in this list as well. Obviously, there's been a lot of applicants there.
correct. Yeah. So I mean, Ilya, who is the general manager, I've spoken to Ilya in the past. So shout out to you if you're seeing this. He's the general managing partner of Move to Russia. And yeah, he says like there's a potential of annual applicants of 100,000 once the program matures and more people are
Right.
interested in it. It sounds a very optimistic goal for that. I'm not sure if that's going to be reached, because in my opinion, again, like so here, like here's like the specific term that President Putin used was the destructive neoliberal ideology. That is like a counterbalance to it, and I think the West is currently in the shift away from this neoliberal ideology. So I assume that most likely the demand for escaping the woke West will perhaps wane with time, but again, only time will tell. I think it's a very interesting use case and well, a niche to promote. So this is, I think, a very smart idea to do for the Russian Federation, to attract people to the country.
Now, yeah, I mean, I want to circle back to something that you mentioned at the beginning of this episode, and that was this homestead, or this terminology called homestead. I'm not sure what the equivalent terminology is in some of these other languages, or the legal term or the kind of slang term. But yeah, in Canada they called it the Dominions Land Act, and in the United States they called it the Homestead Act, where essentially you could essentially occupy and work the land, and then you could become the owner of the land. There was a specific amount that each of these programs in North America would grant you after a certain time, or requirements were met. But essentially, it wouldn't be, from what I understand of the Dominions Land Act and the Homestead Act, you didn't have to give a sum of like an actual deposit of gold or paper currency or whatever to do this. It was just like you claimed the land, you made it productive, maybe you built a house there, maybe you're doing farming, and then after some time it would become yours, and you'd be considered the legal owner of that land, and you could actually sell it at that point if you really wanted to, or pass it down to a next of kin. Now, are you aware of these details, with regard to this situation in Russia? Are there people taking advantage of something like this, or is it still a little bit fuzzy on that topic?
Well, there has been, like, for quite a while, which is called law on the Far Eastern hectare. So this has been a law by Russian President Putin on 2016. I'm quickly gonna show you guys the text here. I've pulled it from Wikipedia because I don't speak Russian, so forgive me. This is just paraphrasing. So, the law on the Far Eastern hectare, or the federal law of May the 1st, 2016, is a law by Russian President Vladimir Putin to give 1 hectare of free land in the Russian Far East to Russian citizens and foreign nationals as long as they live there for 5 years. Well, it's the plan only allows Russian citizens to own the land. Foreigners can join the program but cannot own the land until 5 years after they have immigrated to Russia. So this is a very interesting thing, because it actually, they give you free land, as long as you have it for 5 years, and by the time which coincides with the duration requirements to become a Russian citizen is 5 years. Then you can actually own the land. Russian citizens, they can get it immediately, like the hectare, but foreigners, they can own it. Well, they can occupy it basically, or cultivate it for 5 years and then claim it after they have resided for 5 years consecutively there. So the Russian Far East, here's a quick map, so you guys can see it. It's like all of this area. So as you can see, this is like the eastern Siberia, the Kuril Islands here. There is, I believe, Vladivostok, the easternmost larger city of Russia, and so it's a very large area. I think it's like 6 million square kilometers, which is absolutely insane. There
Right.
is
You have the Kamchatka Peninsula there as well, which is of course filled
yeah.
with volcanoes and excellent salmon fishing.
Yeah, so here it's all of this area here. So I believe this is, I think, almost as big as the continental United States. Like 6 million square kilometers, or almost 7. So this is a big chunk of land where you can cultivate it. I mean, right now it's not that attractive, to be honest, because most of the year it's frozen land. But I believe maybe with climate change, because everybody's betting on it. If you look at the geopolitics, everybody's betting on that the polar caps in the North Pole will not be frozen all the time. So this might become actually very like productive land or interesting land to own. And for some people it makes sense. They want to do it right now. They bet on this. They say, okay, maybe in 40 years, my children or my grandchildren, they can have a big farm there, or at least we can, own some land. Even though it might not be productive. But it's a very interesting quirk because you don't need to invest anything. You actually just can claim the land. You can say, okay, well, I'm going to cultivate it, and if you're a foreigner, after 5 years, it's yours. So that's a very interesting thing, and you can couple it with the Russian shared values visa, or which I want to talk about last, and is the Russian golden visa as well. So yeah.
Well, yeah. So that's a great summary there. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that because it definitely gives a good kind of first pass intro into this topic, because I think this essentially granting of the land in the case of foreigners after 5 years, it's not clear to me how they take possession of it essentially in the first place. Do they just have to like fill out an application to say, hey, I want to use this, and because I want to participate in this program? It seems a little bit of like a chicken and egg thing there from some standpoint. But that being said, there is so many hectares of open land that, yeah, if you express any interest in that, I'm sure they're on board with that. So it is a challenging topic.
No.
But I also will say that I think there's actually some families from Australia that have jumped on this in recent times, and probably a couple from maybe North America as well. I've seen some of these reports from some of these Australian families. I don't know if you've come across those, but there are people jumping on this stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's again like for people who want to own the land. They have the dream of own it. Russia is a destination for that. Yeah, I mean there's like these two ways where you can live in Russia. There's the other way also that I wanted to quickly touch on, which is the Russian investor visa. And let me see if you don't see the screen. So there we go. And I'll pull out the page from Ilya here. So yeah, you can invest in either a social project, a real estate in different regions. It can be rented out, it can be sold. There are different requirements. The cheapest one is like $210,000 of real estate in the far eastern regions. Again, the same regions where you can get the plot of land. In Moscow, it's obviously a little bit more expensive, and also the rest of the regions is $270,000. So it will give you, yeah. So you can. This is like the golden visa. It gives you like a more straightforward path towards citizenship as well, and yeah, it's basically like a fast track option. You can also have the social projects, which are much cheaper, like 165,000, but there is no return on it. But still, it's very interesting to see, this alternative, where traditionally CBI has only been seen as something for people coming from these countries, but now this country is offering these sort of programs for outsiders. I think this is just the natural like development of how the marketplace of CBI and RBI usually goes. So even though it might be controversial in the West to talk about this, I believe it's good that there is some sort of competition, that we have this, even if we don't really agree with government's policies. I mean, there is always a government where you can never approve 100% of the things with every country in the world. So I believe if there's demand, yeah, then why not give out the supply for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that I think it's great to cover some of these topics because, in the world of investment migration, there's a lot of big numbers that get flown around. like as if they're just, to to speak frankly, like chump change, like, oh, invest 500,000 here, 250,000 here. And the truth is that, some people, are maybe interested in some of these more affordable options, in a hectare of land combined with maybe something next to it. Maybe, you could possibly work out a, situation where, hey, the government's going to grant me this hectare for free, but maybe they'll give me the hectare next to it or two next to it at a fair price. So that's an awesome way to approach these topics from affordability. Any final thoughts from you, Yamin?
If you want to talk about this, talk to Ilya from Move to Russia. And yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode of the Sovereign Lounge. Round the World and Yamin Fauzi. Catch you next time. Thanks again.
Thank you.